working with folks who have not been, I would say, sufficiently recognized for their careers and the labor and insistence and persistence, the work to articulate their lives as Black women and for us in general as Black people. And so this exhibition came about because I was actually thinking about, through my research, trying to remount or find a way to bring the work of the Dawa Collective to the present. This exhibition and this project is dedicated to their memories. It's dedicated to all the Black women whose names we cannot call at the moment because we don't know them.
The problem that we face is essentially the notion of the academy. The academy is a kind of collection of awarenesses about what things are supposed to be and what terms are the conditions that allow us to go forward. At some point, people don't look at it simply because they choose to agree with the nature of the system that actually allows them to move forward. If you disagree with it, you're not a part of the system, and at some point you're opposed to it, and so at some point there's a power struggle. And those problems create the problem that we actually face today, because those problems are about power. That's a means by which the academy keeps people in line. Well, at some point, I think at some point, there's a question that in my mind is, who says that I can't participate? And on what terms do you dictate what my participation will be?
We were women who were in the cultural arts of Toronto, of Ontario. There were all kinds of people who came together to sort of deal with a lot of the critical political issues that were happening at the time in the 1980s. There were a lot of things that we were all doing that brought us as visual artists together as well, politically engaged in the community. And we were forming together, collectively formed this group called Dawa. And it was a forming of a group. It wasn't, somebody else did it and we came along. We formed it and it was very organic.
They were pushing back against this idea of like curating or having an external person coming in and interpreting their work for themselves.
The collective, I think at some point, becomes a kind of like position of power because they say, we're here. And I think that's valuable. You don't have to say it with loud breaths or whatever, but to say, we're here, and identify yourself so that people can actually have access to what you think and what you do, which is probably the most important thing to do, say, I'm here.
So I think the Dawa project and the project that preceded it were really, really important for shaping that type of engagement with the arts, one around autonomy, one around pushing back and actually naming anti-Black racism as a barrier to participation within the sphere of the arts. But those two exhibitions really shifted this notion that we can do it ourselves, right? If we're not being shown, we are producing work, and if we're not being shown, we can create the conditions for our own dissemination.
Those artists from the 1989 exhibition are in this exhibition. That 30-something year span, we were not twiddling our thumbs. We were still producing, still working, but the system as it is doesn't really have a place for us. We don't belong.
I don't want to cling to this sort of romanticized notion of Black art in the 80s or 90s, but there was this organization called CANBAE, Canadian Black Artists in Action, and it was a national Black arts organization that was founded by a woman, Ayanna Black, the late Ayanna Black. And what that did, I only say this because as we're talking now in 2022, no such national Black arts organization exists to incubate, to network, to provide a platform for Black artists across the country. That is disturbing, but it's a real thing, and visibility.
I think about what Toni Morrison says about racism, and that racism is a distraction. And so I actually feel the same way about erasure. One, that erasure is purposeful and intentional, and that erasure is there to allow us to continue to waste our time trying to find ourselves. So we spend a lot of time trying to find ourselves when we're actually standing right in front of each other.
So what becomes at stake is the very narrative of this country. We are not working with the perfect linear story. And in fact, what we're constantly doing when we're trying to reference something that came before us that was not written by us or told directly from those who've experienced it to us, we are doing, that Hartman work of critical fabulating, right? We're filling in as much as we possibly can with what we have. How do we responsibly find ways to fill them?
Oh my God, is it ever crowded?
Because apparently some of them were there. I think it's one of those you have to come back again.
They're always running left or right or looking at their phone, but they don't talk to each other.